Enough backhand. That's a backhanded compliment, I feel like.
For myself.
Here we go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Hemp Hill Farm. Take care of all your CBD needs. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
You need to fix your hat.
What's wrong with my hat?
You look like you've taken more than CBD. You're all disheveled.
Well, the deal messed it up.
What deal?
I ain't wearing a hat then.
There you go.
And this is a cool hat. This is Lucky Duck, if I'm on camera. That's their brand new lid. I like that lid.
Well, it doesn't look good on your big old dome.
Well, thanks. I wore that around for 2 days.
Somebody should have told you.
Yeah, I guess they would have. Also, go to Boss website and get your BossShotShells.com Stanfield 9s on a limited run right now. Perfect for dove, teal, grouse, any kind of quail. That's what you need, Boss 9s. With us today from University of Texas, El Paso, which actually is probably in closer to being in Arizona than it is the rest of Texas, Mr. Philip Lavretsky. Did I do it right?
You did it right.
Damn right I did. I got this down now. I had to really concentrate on that last name.
I know.
Why don't we ever have any Smiths or like Jacksons on or something shit easy to say?
Screw that up too.
Dr. Lavretsky, got a question for you.
Well, I hope you got a couple.
Do it.
I got one. First question is, are we going to be able to shoot pintails in 3 years?
Oh man, I'm the wrong person to ask that. Yeah, no, I know, I understand that pintail populations are right at that cusp, aren't they? Let's just hope some of that winter weed and some wetter conditions this next couple of years helps us out, and populations show a rebound. But you're gonna have to ask someone above my pay grade to answer that one.
I think we were within like 350,000 birds of not having it this year.
We were close.
Yeah, I thought it was in the 100,000 or so.
Oh, okay.
We're. I mean, you might be right. I just don't remember the numbers right now. But yeah, we were close. It's been rough for them. Hopefully we find some birds out there. Hopefully they help us out.
It just seems like no matter what like we're always back and forth. You'd get 2 for a while and then it's back to 1. And no matter what conservation efforts happen, it just doesn't really turn around for the pintail.
Yeah, so pintails, I think we talked about this, or you guys have talked about it, but they're like they're in an ecological trap, right? They really like to go in early. They like kind of that short grass prairie. And unfortunately, wheat looks like that. And so halfway through their nesting, the combines come, right? It's not a great situation. So it's a matter of, a lot of it is a matter of working with landowners and getting some of that winter wheat down where we can sustain some of those crops through their breeding season, through their nesting season, get some more birds out there. That's gonna hopefully, folks like Ducks Unlimited, Delta Waterfowl, they'll be on the pulse and working with some of the landowners out in the prairie pothole region. Hopefully get some of those acreage going.
When do the pintails come off the nest? Because most of that area up there, they haven't even cut wheat yet.
That's what the problem is.
Well, but I'm saying, shouldn't they be off the nest by now?
Yeah. No, they are picking, so some of the earlier they're one of the earlier nesters, right? So they're gonna start in May when so this is if you're not planting winter wheat is the problem. So when you're having other cover crops out there,
right,
that are gonna be combined, let's say end of May or June, so they're right in the middle there. Those are the problems.
That makes more sense to me, because if it was the winter wheat, they're not cutting winter wheat in Alberta and Saskatchewan until July or August.
Right. Yeah, that's why we want winter wheat. We need more farmers putting that as the cover crop instead of whatever it is that they're putting.
That absolutely makes a lot more sense. That's why I was asking.
One thing that I had thought about before.
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah, finish your thought there. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I remember because I just finished a lecture on it, but the problem is that winter wheat is you get about half the amount of dollars. So there has to be, the big thing right now is incentive, right? So incentive of like why you would put winter wheat, although I don't know what it goes for now, but I know that's been a long standing like back and forth. If there's been a lot of incentive programs where it's like, well, plant winter wheat and we'll subsidize whatever the dollars are at the end. But, it's a back and forth depending on how the markets are going.
I wonder how much land Delta and Ducks Unlimited own.
Own? Not a ton. I mean, owning is hard. I also just finished a lecture on that. Owning, Ducks Unlimited would own more than Delta. Delta really only owns the Delta marshes out in Canada. A lot of it is all just easements, right? They don't want to own it because there's taxes and all these other things. It's more about putting easements on. That's a big one. Making sure that even if you sell your land, that easement stays as part of the purchase and selling agreements, and so nobody can really touch those per se, right? And so those are the ways that Ducks Unlimited gets their 15 plus million acres conserved kind of stuff. Not necessarily purchase. I don't know how much they, even when they do purchase, it's for short order, and they usually turn it over to state agencies with the caveats of again easements on it, where the state has to continue to make sure that it's a working wetland and can't convert it or any of that
They
stuff.
own Ducks Unlimited owns 300,000 acres. I just looked up, mostly all in Canada.
Yeah, there you go.
It says that on their website?
Yeah.
No, I looked it up on the internet.
Oh.
There you go.
It says that
the interwebs tells you. Yeah, so they got 300,000 that they actually own, but they conserve 15 million through easements, and then what was it? It was like some staggering number, about 50 million acres or more that they've helped conserve in one form or another. So again, both of those clubs don't own a ton. I mean, it's expensive to own land. So it's a lot of it is buying and then transferring or easements. I mean, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, others do the same. It's the same kind of game.
And they're probably trying to look to dump those 300,000 acres as soon as they can, right? And then find something else to purchase.
They don't want. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of it will be agreements with the state. Either the state or the feds might buy it, or there might be some private individuals that buy it that are perfectly fine with making sure that it's a working duck club, basically. Usually, yeah, that's usually how it kind of goes. They'll both keep a certain amount because they've got headquarters and all that, but most of it gets transferred quite quickly. And most of it is just goes straight into easements that protect the habitat and the land for so many years.
I was curious because we had just gotten back from the Delta convention, did a deal there last weekend, and I didn't know the difference between the two. And I just looked. Delta's got 62,000 members. Ducks Limited's got 700,000. Delta raised $12 million in 2021. Ducks Limited $340 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you could see it in their. So they both came out around the same time. They were both those organizations were started both in the, in the 1910s, 1920s, by gentlemen, by duck hunters who were seeing all the populations become dwindling down. Ford Bell was the one that started Delta Waterfowl, and then several members started Ducks Unlimited. They both had different names, but yeah, no, they both grew in different directions. Obviously, Delta with their numbers, they're more focused on the production side. So like, let's say they're more focused. This is the land we have. How do we increase production? While DU has the same focus, their primary focus is get more habitat. Yeah. So So they have two distinct kind of ways they're going about towards waterfowl conservation for sure.
Yeah, I did not know much about Delta, but it was founded by James Ford Bell.
Ford Bell.
And he was the owner of General Mills cereal.
Yep.
And then he got Adolphus Leopold in it. It's a pretty interesting story.
Yep.
And Ducks Unlimited started.
All of those guys.
Ducks Unlimited didn't start until 1937.
Yeah, but that was when that name became present. They were their original name was like more game, something like that. More birds Inc.
Boy,
I don't remember.
That one would have really sucked. That does not have the flair of Ducks Unlimited.
Yeah. And then it took like 3-4 years. And they incorporated as DU officially, and they and Delta, but again, especially DU at that time were like the people that had the ear and the funding to get legislative acts passed, like duck stamps and all of that at the time. And they were those people were, I mean, they were the founders and the forefathers of what we consider waterfowl conservation.
Yeah, we wouldn't have ducks if it wasn't for those organizations. Hats off to both of them.
No. And just those few people, like we always say, money. Yeah, I mean, you just got to have the money to do the right things. And as long as you've got foresight and passion, thankfully for those few individuals, we were able to not just go to extinction and maintain populations and then move forward with science-based conservation that is at the forefront of wildlife conservation.
If it wasn't for evil rich people, we wouldn't have universities, we wouldn't have hospitals, and we wouldn't have research centers, and we would not have ducks. And that's the bottom line.
Unfortunately, I guess that's the bottom line. You are correct.
You got to have money before you can save the pygmies.
Can't build a research institute on love, I guess.
No. I've never had a job from a poor guy, and I've never been to a hospital that was built by poor people. Well, they might have been built by poor people, but it was funded by a wealthy person.
Well, a lot of the early hospitals weren't they funded by like churches and stuff? Didn't churches start a lot of these big hospitals that we see?
And where do churches get their money?
Well, they pass that offering plate every Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
sometimes
it's
twice.
sad.
You should look up who the number one landowner is in the world.
Unfortunately, we know
it's Catholic Church, right?
Well, yeah, I guess it probably is Catholic Church. Bill Gates is probably second. Or actually, the Mormons are probably BYU's probably second.
So let me get your take on that, because now all of a sudden we're seeing malaria on some of these genetically modified mosquitoes. Why can't we just leave nature alone?
That's not what we do, is it?
Yeah, but why didn't we learn anything from Jurassic Park?
I say that all the time. Life finds a way. Yeah, no, we need stuff, and we need stuff now. So, I mean, it's always been the case, right? You want a fatter pig, you bring in some wild boar and you start fattening them up and picking and going through that artificial selective process. We needed dogs, so we moved wolves from the aggressive behavior to more colic and, like more happy behaviors. We need this is the things that we do. They're almost all you can consider all of them as necessary tools for the future of society and survival and all that good stuff. Yeah. I might not agree with all of them, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah, but it's just like, now we got malaria, and just right after we happen to release billions of genetically modified mosquitoes, malaria pops up in Texas and Florida. Just
I'm a little more on the mosquito modification program than I was before. If they're reintroducing a mosquito that's going to make the other mosquitoes sterile, I don't have a real problem with that.
But there is...
Yeah, the idea... So malaria was coming. It just was coming. Like, it was inevitable. So the idea is that can you knock down the population by essentially having non-breeders, breeders that can't breed, right? So the sterile breeders... Well, sterile breeders are oxymoron. But sterile individuals that essentially take away the potential of that population to grow.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I mean, that's definitely one way of doing it, right?
Yes, I'm 100% on board with that. And that might be the only thing Bill Gates has done that I approve of.
But I just feel like there is a place in our ecosystem for
we're
mosquitoes.
talking on this computer because of Bill Gates.
Yeah,
Well,
evil genius.
the guy, I don't trust the man at all. But yes, his computer stuff. But after he's become wealthy, most things that he has pushed, this world global shit, I don't agree with. I do not like these people. I don't like the idea that the FDA just approved this genetically modified fake meat. I don't.
That sounds fun.
That can't be good for you. I mean, but neither are neither are Little Debbie oatmeal pies, and I do love them.
You need to watch Dope Sick and see how the FDA passed OxyContin.
Oh,
I know all that stuff happens.
So,
but I am.
Hey, it wasn't that far away that we were testing LSD on people. So.
Right.
We do things and we learn. Sometimes we improve. Sometimes we don't.
I don't think we learn more because we just get a new person up there that wants control and power. But the mosquito thing, I'm on board with.
That is the inevitable circle, isn't it? The control and power.
Yes, it is.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yep.
So tell me about the Mexican duck. Well, before we get to the Mexican duck, I want to talk about the whistling tree duck. Mexican whistling tree duck, black-bellied tree duck, whatever they're called. We have them here now.
Black bellies and fulvous whistling ducks,
yes. Yeah. We did not have them here 20 years ago. We also, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have white-winged dove, and we did not have Eurasian dove where we are, and we're covered up in both now.
Yep.
Now we do have, we have whistling tree ducks that have actually have a nest here. And I talked to a guy in Kansas, and he told me they have them in Kansas. Why are these birds suddenly pushing their nesting grounds further and further north?
Yeah, so that's as climate changes, they're becoming more favorable conditions for these birds. We see sort of a similar reaction by Mexican ducks. They're pushing further north, but whistling ducks are one of the ones that are, rather than contracting in their space, they're expanding, right? So it's been positive for these guys. Yeah, they're prolific breeders. They're using all the nest boxes that we have out there for wood ducks and others, and they're out competing. As far as I understand, I don't have any data for that, but it seems like they're doing quite well, and their populations are rapidly expanding. You're right. I think the first ones were maybe 10, 15 years ago, and it's just a few birds, and now they're established populations in Florida, Texas. Heck, like you said, Kansas have them. I think I heard there were whistling ducks that were shot even in Ohio. So they're just moving about the country free and easy. For whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know the exact cause for why they're doing so well and what is making them do so well. But I know there's a few folks out there trying to get ahead of that and trying to understand what that's potentially those are the birds that we're going to be, we're going to have some liberal seasons on those instead of pintail.
Well, we don't shoot any here. We don't ever see them. I mean, you don't see them in the fields.
Well, I mean, this is the first year that I've ever seen them
I've
here.
seen them here a couple of times now. For about the last 3 or 4 years we've had them. We had one at the pond here for a couple of days last year. But it's just hit and miss.
They've never made a nest.
No, they're starting to do their nesting here. But what's funny is you get like at Abilene, around Abilene and stuff, people have them on their deer leases. You see them in the neighborhoods on the houses and stuff. So they're very adaptive.
Yeah. So one thing that I found out when I was running around West Texas looking for Mexican ducks is these things know when a corn feeder goes off.
Yes.
I watched those corn feeders go off, and these things just came in and just ate up. So obviously they're targeting the corn. They're doing well on it. With all the nest boxes, there's clearly enough areas for them to breed and grow in that way. But yeah, they have quickly adapted to the deer leases that are putting out corn because they're benefiting. I watched it myself. I just watched those corn feeders go off as if they were pigs coming in. They knew what that sound was just as much as the pigs.
You used the term climate change a minute ago. We've had climate change from the time we started till the Earth was established to today. I don't know the word I'm looking for established, but we've always had climate change constantly. And bird numbers,
constantly.
I'm in my mid 50s. I've been in the waterfowl business for 3 decades, and I've seen a lot of different changes, not just here but everywhere. When I first got in business, there was a ton of Canada geese on the East Coast. Then they canceled their season, and now their Canada geese are back. They didn't have a lot of snow geese. Now they've got the snow geese. The Texas coast was full of snows. People built up land and stuff. They drove them out. Louisiana, the same with the sugar cane, is went in and replaced corn and milo, and they've got rid of them. So we're in a constantly, things evolve all the time. So people take, when you say climate change, oh, it's doom and gloom. That's just part of the big picture, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely part of the big picture. I mean, that's what part of my lab does, is look at how different ice ages change distributions and demographics of different species, and how they might have, like, for example, we found out that through the various climatic events in North America, it essentially provided the habitat and isolation of mallard groups to then evolve into what we consider American black ducks, mottled ducks, and Mexican ducks, right? So these events are definitely ebbs and flow. What is different right now is the rate and speed of change, right? So that's definitely the difference between now and in the past. Where is this going? Obviously, we don't know. And again, an important aspect, climate change is not just about heat. It's more about the severity of annual weather patterns becoming more unpredictable is what it is. Could be get hotter, could be things. When it used to be hot, it gets hotter. When it used to be wet, it gets wetter, but shorter. Like, these things are what people have modeled and assumed, and we're feeling it, right? But on the other hand, we are expecting like places like England and areas in that area potentially going into a mini ice age here if the Atlantic Ocean, one of their currents is like what feeds warm air into that region, is apparently collapsing, and so they might go into a mini ice age.
No, where's this mini ice age going to be at?
Europe.
England, Norway, that Sweden.
I wish it would go further west.
That's what people don't understand, is whenever they hear about things warming and things getting hotter, you're really fucked if things get cold and you can't grow your food. Like, that's when you're screwed.
Yeah, things get interesting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's happened is, obviously, these birds have probably, it's not just climate, it's ag development. It was ag development across Mexico and then going into Texas and Florida, and it was just positive for those birds, right? So they've obviously reacted, adapted. I mean, like you had noted, changes in ag practices actually explain some of the shifts in specks, in the speckled bellies, right? So greater white front geese used to be huge numbers in Texas, then they shifted over towards Louisiana and Missouri, and now they're shifting again, is what I've heard. So these shifts are constant, right? And these birds react to what is on the landscape, and that landscape is also not just shifting due to, climatic changes, but also just our practices. Where you grow rice, when you don't grow rice, the level of that corn production, all of that will dictate. These birds, when you put out food out there, these birds can react quite quickly to it.
Are our speckle belly numbers at all-time highs worldwide right now?
Highest on record?
Yes.
Are they at world? I don't know.
Because we have more than ever.
Well, it just seems like everybody is reporting seeing more and more speckle bellies, like you had said. Like, they're going into Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, and there's a lot of guys that message me and they're like, "Hey, I've never seen specks before, but we've got them here now."
Yeah, that it's possible. You'll have to get a goose biologist on here.
So I want to go back to the ice age real quick. On most ice ages, like you said, Europe, or England and Norway are setting up for another ice age. Is that common to where, like, only a specific region is under, like, a mini ice age? Like, would we feel anything here?
Would we feel anything here? That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not a climatologist. I just no. What would we feel here? I don't know. I have no idea. Is it location based potentially? And then depending on the severity of it, could then result in like a speed up of sea ice. Increase in sea ice, and that would then spread towards across the pole into Canada and then come down if it's that severe. So it just all depends. I don't know.
You know, you talk about the climate change and the mini ice age. In England, they used to have a winter solstice festival type thing, like a Renaissance fair, and they used to do it on I think it's the Rhine River that runs through, or the Thane that runs through London and stuff, and they would do it there. Well, in the 1700s, they would do it and they would have ice skating and all kind of, I don't know if they had ice skating back then, but whatever the hell they had, it was a winter festival. Then in the 1800s, it was warm and the river didn't thaw ice up and they couldn't do it there. Well, then in the early 1900s, they did it again, and then today they can't do it again. So weather has come and gone, and it's a cycle that's happened forever. The media always wants to make it act like we're sitting on record times right now. It's the worst it's ever going to be. The oceans are going to rise. You can take a picture of an ocean anywhere, and you can do it in 1901. You can do it in 1801. You can do it today, and the ocean level hasn't risen a quarter of an inch anywhere. I mean, all the wealthy people in the world wouldn't be buying. The Obamas would not have a house in Martha's Vineyard if they thought that we were going to be freaking 5 foot underwater. The ocean was going to rise 5 feet. It's just the bottom line to the deal.
Well, so you're saying I shouldn't buy land in Arizona and assume it's going to be
not unless we have a big ass earthquake that I've been waiting for since I'm a kid. It's California's going to fall off in the ocean. I've been waiting for that ever since.
You shouldn't buy property in Miami if you're worried about the ocean levels rising.
All the expensive places to buy land you shouldn't buy because it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And the banks wouldn't finance it if they were that worried about it. I'm trying to figure out. Like the last ice age we had, however many millions of years ago, it was global.
The ice age has got to affect us if it hits England.
The last ice age was, 20,000 years ago? Yeah. That was global.
Yeah. We're going to have to, if it affects England and Norway and stuff, and it's a true mini ice age, it's going to get really cold there. Not for the flat earthers, Andy, I'm going to have to bop your bubble on here, but those low pressure systems go all the way around the globe. So those if it's cold and it's got driven cold wind, it's going to go all the way across from Europe, all the way across Russia to Siberia, and boom, it's going to be in Alaska. The flat earthers are going to have a big problem figuring this shit out, but that's the way it works.
I never.
This is an interesting topic. I'm gonna have to not say too much.
I never said I was a flat earther. I said that I don't have any evidence to support it being round or flat. That's all I said.
Well, I watched,
and now I'm labeled as a flat earther.
Listen,
I'm not going to go up into a space station.
Let's get you into that spaceship up into the into space. Let's let you take a look.
But that's going to be the only way that I'm going to be able to find out. I'm not going up there because I don't like flying Delta. I'm not take a space station.
3 nights ago, I saw the Starlink satellites come over. I hadn't seen them in a couple of years, and I saw them last night come over. And I'm thinking, right there for the flat earther, they're going to have a real problem with that too.
How?
How does that thing stay in orbit if it's a flat Earth? You think they got motors that just run forever? It's continuous.
I don't understand.
I know you don't. That's why
it can go in a circle, can it not?
They don't have a motor. They sit in orbit.
Okay.
If there wouldn't be a deal constant if the Earth's flat.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't there be?
Because we're spinning.
He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm the one.
Yeah,
I'm the one. So I want to talk about.
So you're out on the flat Earth thing, just so that we can put you on record.
But yes, he has a brain.
I'm definitely not a flat earther.
He has a brain. He's intelligent. You graduated from Texas Tech with honors, and I'm really starting to question. I think we need to get a refund on our money we spent out there. I'm starting to think.
You just got to question everything.
Not that.
Got to question everything.
Doc, I got a question for you. Last time you were here, we had your last podcast was one of the most interesting we've had because we learned about things that I have had so many people talk to me about. Any updates on the reincarnation of the woolly mammoth.
Everybody wants to know when that's coming back. What's the progress report?
Well, I mean, I think they have for the baby mammoth coming 2028 is what I think that company said. I don't know, but I get it's possible it'll be like a hairy elephant in the beginning. I guess we need this mini ice age for the mammoth to really do well. Yeah. Where's it going? There's a whole bunch of folks working really hard trying to figure it out. So we'll see. What are we at? Almost 24. So 4 years. Maybe we'll have some mammoth burgers.
Once again, we're jacking with nature. Nature got rid of those things for a reason, and now here we are bringing them back. Nobody learns.
Yeah, because for the mini ice age, you need really warm coats.
I'm starting to think that somebody knew that an ice age was about to happen, and that's why we're seeing this hairy mammoth coming back.
Will the hairy mammoth survive the cold weather? I'm assuming you're not going to see those in Texas or Arizona. Those creatures, if they do reintroduce them, what's going to be the difference between them and the big ox? That's what they're going to have to live like, aren't they? The musk ox.
Yeah. So I mean, the entire collaboration for this whole thing was the assumption that these things are going to be in a park in Siberia. Now, for hopefully obvious reasons, that situation is fluid and unlikely to occur, in my opinion. More likely that they're either going to be like in the Yukon. It'd have to be somewhere in the Yukon or Northwest Territories, Northern Alaska. I don't know I'm not privy to any of the negotiations or discussions of that sort, but that's what I would expect. I would highly doubt these things would go to Russia.
Who's going to be the first sucker to shoot them out of season? Somebody's going to pop one. You know damn well they're going to.
Somebody will.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, I thought it was an elk.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm more interested in bringing back the Labrador duck and stuff like that. I think that's really interesting.
Hey, I suggested it. They didn't say no. So we'll see.
But the time frame on that would be tremendous because we've been trying to save whooping cranes since 1935, 30, and we've got a big bustling population of less than 1,000 wild birds still. So it's not a very fast go.
Yeah, it's I mean, they're a long-lived species, low output, really specific, hard to train, quote unquote train. They lost all their parents that knew how to fly. That whole remember that movie? Yeah, it's just a hard species, just like the California condor is it was a hard species, lots of money. That's the whole ethical debate in conservation always is like, well, do we put all these millions of dollars and potentially lose other species, but we might retain this one, or do we not? That's a whole discussion that has always been lively and continues. And even today, that discussion is now turning to the point of like, well, if we have hybrids or this thing that is invasive but does well or equal to what used to be there, should we just accept that? That's a whole debate now too. Yeah, I don't know.
The past
Labrador duck, I think we could go a lot faster than the whooping crane if we can get a few birds. We've got lots of ways of they're a lot faster, a lot better production. Heck, we could just simply have them incubate a whole bunch of eggs and hatch them and put them out there and let them learn the ways.
The passenger pigeon. We talked about that last time. I still don't understand how that bird it couldn't be just from hunting. We didn't have enough hunters.
Yeah. Hey, give a person enough shells and enough time, you get to shoot year round every day. And you shoot like 500 or 1,000 of them, and everybody's doing it. There's always a way.
I don't. I'm gonna have to disagree on that one. There's too many places.
What's your other option then?
I think it had disease or something.
You know what?
It had to have.
Oh, no. You basically imagine if we just allowed spring hunting for for pintails, right? We just said, you know what? You could just shoot a pintail every day, no matter how many you want, every single day, the entire year. It's not going to take that many years.
Yeah, but the thing was back then was 1900 or when did they go extinct?
The last one, it was Martha, 1918, something like that.
But at that time of year, the population was a fraction of what it is now. People didn't have the money to just go shoot stuff. They had to shoot stuff to eat stuff. They didn't just sport. I mean, there were some wealthy guys that hunted.
But they were putting them on hats, so there is an element of sport to it. They weren't, I mean, taxidermy.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but you could easily argue the same thing for ducks. We had tenfold probably of what we even have now, and we were able to knock those things down to almost nothing. It's just same thing with the bison. There are like millions of bison, and then there weren't, right? Give a person enough shells and enough time, and you could do a lot.
Yeah. I'm not an educated person. I just think there's more factors to it than just people shooting to knock them out like that. What was our?
Oh, I'm sure it was additive. You know, I'm sure there were some diseases coming in, but then also like essentially no production for years and years, 50, 60 years of no production. You're essentially just killing them, eating the eggs, basically zero production. 50, 60 years of that, you could have a good knockdown.
What was our in 1650? I know there's nobody here to get. What do you think the duck population was compared to today?
The duck
population.
Yeah, probably in the 100, 200 million.
Because 15% of the ducks die regardless. We hunt them, shoot them, whatever. It's famine, disease, whatever. Was that not the same back then too?
Yeah, they die at a higher. You're right. But I would argue they died. Those things happen at a higher rate now than they used to because we brought there's lots of diseases that weren't always here.
So there wasn't a 15% rate.
Yeah, I think it was less. I mean, potentially. But that's sure. But the habitat was better. Production should be better. Nobody's really there. You've got predators, but you've got a completely different set of predators, right? You've got apex predators knocking down all of the meso predators that are abundant now that weren't so then, right? So you've got a completely different predator community that actually decreases predation because the meso predators would have been kept in check by the apex predators.
What was the
that dynamic?
The food sources weren't as ready like they are now either for them, was it?
Were they just grass pretty much?
Well, you're eating submerged aquatic vegetation. You're eating, wild rice, wild seeds. Yeah, you're right. There's no corn and soybeans. Those are a lot of calories that I mean, it's funny. You can have moist soil management. You can imagine a moist soil management. The number of calories that come out of that is about half that of corn, but the diversity allows for increased production is what is shown. The diversity of food types. It's like you could just eat McDonald's every single day, and yeah, you would grow, but are you as healthy as if you had increased variety? And the answer is no for people and for ducks.
So the variety is what led to a more robust diet.
Yeah, the studies have shown that moist soil management, those kind of wetlands, equivalent to have actually produced better staging hens, hens that are going back to through their spring migration. Those staging areas allowed for better increased survival because those hens are in better health because they've got a more variety of types of foods instead of just straight up calories that are coming from mostly fats from corn.
So I want to talk to you about the colors of ducks. What happens in evolutionary terms where a male duck will take on these bright colors? Like, is it all sex or is it low predation? Because I mean, to have the bright colors,
it's
you're gonna get picked off.
It's two things. So it's sexual selection, a mix of male competition, and a mix of there's lots of so it kind of goes back. Actually, it's just those two, because the third thing that I'm about to say is really sexual selection. So really imagine if you've got a ton of birds about the same size, kind of look the same. You want to be able to be like, oh no, you are not only the same individual of my species, but you are an optimum of that species, right? And so those individuals have to have those types of colorations, because it's like, yes, I am your mate and I carry good genes, because it takes a lot of calories to be all fancy, right? And so I'm showcasing to the other males that I'm more dominant, so that's male-male competition, but I'm also showcasing to you that I'm quite fit, because not only am I surviving, but I'm thriving, right? That's what that's what that male is telling the female, as well as other potential suitors, and being like, no, look how much brighter I am than you. And they're having that, males are having that sort of conversation. It's just like an elk. Well, they don't always just fight, right? They each basically look at each other and be like, can I really take you or not, through strutting, other forms of communication that they have. It's the same thing. So yeah, that evolved in what we consider whole Arctic ducks, because the ones in the north, right, from Eurasia, North America, these birds that have these migratory patterns, lots of different species coexisting. And so there's a need for that kind of identification. You can compare that to the American black duck or the mottled duck, where they evolved in locations where there aren't a ton of birds that look like them, right? There's nobody else breeding on that landscape of that size and look. And so essentially males switch from sexual selection. Sexual selection is still there, but natural selection is now greater than sexual selection for them in those locations, because it's like, I'm going to breed because a female is going to pick me. So now I want to survive longer. Right. Versus the other one is like, oh, I could survive longer if I'm cryptic, but I'm not going to get to breed. So what's the point in life, I guess? So they become brighter. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's like one species of duck took sexual selection to evolve, and then the other one took natural selection.
Sexual selection has to be greater than natural selection, so that the fear of dying is less than the fear of not mating. Creates that's what forces these like extravagant looks, both in birds and in mammals. But then if the fear of dying is greater than the fear of mating, then natural selection takes over, and you want to look more cryptic. That's why they start looking more like a rock, like the females, and they do all colorful. But that's also for the female. The female is like, I'm going to breed no matter what, right? So the fear of dying is much, much greater than the fear of mating. Right. So that natural selection is always higher in females in these cases, right? And in fact, when you look at systems that are reverse, where the female is the one being chosen. So think of hyenas. You actually see a reversal in trends where the female is all bright and big.
I did not know that.
And the male is diminutive. Yeah. There's a few birds, some plovers. There's fish. You see this in fish actually. When the male is the one that like takes care of the young or broods the young, they become the more cryptic and smaller sex, and the female is actually the more extravagant sex.
I'll be damned. I did not know that about
but in most systems, I would say most systems you see it's what you expect. The female, because she's the caregiver in most systems, she has to be cryptic, survive longer, all of these things, and so she is the choosy sex.
And is there any way
she's the one choosing.
Is there any way of knowing how long it takes for a male to start brightening its colors, like on a time scale? Like when we start
on a time scale, we saw the evolution of most of the Annis ducks, all of the ducks we think of now, pintail and gadwall, and all the ones that we think green-winged teal and everything that we think evolved in the last 5 million years.
5 million years.
Yeah, but to lose that trait is really fast, because we know that our estimates for black ducks, mottled ducks, and Mexican ducks is 500,000 years. So in the last 500,000 years, a bunch of mallards essentially completely lost their green heads 99% lost their green heads because sometimes you see it in some of the young males, but became generally cryptic, right? They looked more and more like the female year round than going between kind of this cryptic non-breeding plumage and more extravagant breeding plumage that we see in mallards.
Is the Mexican duck or mottled duck, is that just a offshoot of the mallard?
Yes, at least that's what all, people will tell me, like, don't be so specific, but all our data points to yes, essentially. And that's why we see so many mallard-like traits that we were once considering indicators of hybrids. But what we found out once we started doing all this genetic testing is a whole bunch of formative males, which is the first year male, hatch year male, of all three of these species will more or less randomly, but a good proportion of them, like about 10% of that population, will just showcase some mallard traits because they still have it, not because they're hybrids, but because it's still it's like a teenager. They can't quite control their hormones. So sometimes the mallard trait gets activated. The mallard gene still gets activated. And so they'll show a little green here or a curl and this and that. And you actually see the same exact in female and hen mallards. If they're really old, or if something happens to their ovaries where they don't have estrogen cycles correctly, they actually will look like a male.
Yeah.
And we have a paper in Wildfowl last year where we genetically vetted this individual as a wild female mallard, and outside of the bill looked like a male, just green head, everything was there. And but she was a wild female. And what we found out is that she had lost both her ovaries, although the left one is the only one that's active, at some point for whatever reason. And so it must be that her estrogen cycles essentially were off. And so these genes that code for bright plumage were activated instead of deactivated.
The Mexican duck, I'm going to just, it's not a hypothetical question. It's a true question, just a hypothetical setting. The Mexico City in the mountains, they've got hills, they got everything. And it's cold. They've got a winter time. They get feed there. Do those Mexican ducks feed in the fields like the mallards do here? Are they? Because I've never seen more than 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them together. Do you see big flocks like our mallards, and do they feed in the fields?
I will. Yes, yes, and no. So yes, you are correct. Majority of the time, you see them in pairs or what look like family groups, right? Especially if you drive along canals, they'll just be these groups. It won't be like thousands of them. But on the reverse, on a wetland that I was collecting in the state of Chihuahua, I walked into a cornfield, and the cornfield erupted, and they blackened the sky, and it was all Mexican ducks. Ooh. It was, if you walked into a cornfield in Arkansas and it was all mallards coming up and it blackens the sky, it's exactly the same thing. So I think it just depends on the situation. I think they generally tend to stay within pairs or family unit, small groups. But yeah, they can definitely, when there's good food on the landscape, obviously they'll hit it all together just like mallards would. Now, all of this, we are just starting to understand. For the last basically 30 years, Mexican duck biology was ceased, and so now that we showcase that this is a unique species, U.S. Fish and Wildlife now categorizes it as its own species. There's actually, and this is part of our Arizona project, is to start understanding some of that ecology and biology. How are these birds moving about the landscape? Where we have one bird with a telemetry unit, and they went to this pothole with water that we didn't even know existed in Arizona. So this bird showed us that they're using water sources that we don't see. So now we're going to understand, okay, now that monsoons are coming, how do they respond to that? How do they breed? All of these things we're now just starting to unravel.
So I want to go back to the colors thing, because that is fascinating to me. How do they know, what happens in their genes to where they're like, okay, we've got to brighten our color if anybody's going to pick us?
You can't think of it as oh, this happens tomorrow, right? Think about every single generation, females pick something, right? So you can imagine a pintail, an ancestral pintail. They were probably just brown, but then something happened, a mutation in a gene that for some reason they started to have like a bit of white flecking in their head, right? A little bit of white. And females, for some reason, were like, oh, I really like that. And so they just started picking. So now their male progeny have a higher propensity to have white flecking. And then you start this process, and at every generation for 5 million years, they're picking something that's brighter and brighter and brighter for whatever reason. And they're successful. Those birds, the only reason for that to evolve is birds that are picking mates of that type are more successful in the meaning they have more kids than birds that pick something different. And if you repeat that cycle over and over and over and over for eons, you're going to get brighter birds, just like you will get larger antlers. If females are picking males that have large antlers, their males will have large antlers and larger and larger. And this was the problem that we hypothesized with the Irish elk that went extinct. We think it's called runaway sexual selection, where the trait that females were picking became so grotesque that it actually inhibited the male's ability to survive, and the species went extinct because of it, because there's no males. Because the antlers became so large that it finally, the balance between the ability to mate and the ability to survive was completely unbalanced, and males cease to exist, more or less.
So basically, it's a proportions problem. Whenever that white flecking started to show up, that's the one the females chose, and then that gene got more sexual attention than other things. So he basically just overpopulated it.
Yeah. So essentially, they're picking these traits. And then you can't imagine that they all just started picking. What you're thinking is like a few females were like, oh, look at this. And they just so happened to maybe it was random. They just so happened to have more kids. Right. And better survival than an individual that picked somebody that was more brownish. Maybe they kept picking a teal instead of a pintail. And so they basically had no kids. And so then it was like, so then every year, those individuals that picked the brighter bird just had more kids. And over time, that bird became brighter and more fancier and all of that. Again, it's not just in birds. You see this in mammals. This is why you have such discrepancies in males and females of populations, is that they're just under different pressures, right? The female's always under the pressure to survive, again, in these types of systems, and males are always under the pressure of finding mates. And so mating is more important than surviving, essentially, because they could always survive, but if they don't mate, then their genes don't get passed on, and thus their traits go extinct anyways.
Right. I'm looking at this Irish elk. That is a goofy looking thing right there.
Yeah, should we bring that back?
You'd have to do it with smaller horns. The market's already told you what they wanted.
Whoa. I've seen some of these Texas breeders get some of these, these whitetail that can't even hold their heads up. You know? Hey, maybe they could do it.
What's the reason Mother Nature intended for the male to have horns?
Fight.
That's all I can figure out.
I just need to say Mother Nature has no intent except for individuals to be as good or better than previous generations in the environment that they are found. That's it. And so if we were a loving culture, then there's no reason to fight, right? And so then the trait would be that Mother Nature would choose is that the more loving you are, the more likely you'll get to mate. Unfortunately, because limited resources, that's not the case. And so species are not nice because there's limited resources one way or another. And so the intent is you have to be as good or better than your other adversaries. And the good and better is how many kids do you have? That's the bottom line. How long do you survive, and how many kids do your kids have, and how many kids, great kids do you have? That's the fecundity circle. And the more you have, the better you're doing, right? And so if I'm an elk and I have really large antlers and I survive way longer than you, then those are the kinds of kids that are gonna be put on the landscape in the future as well.
Yeah, people, they have no clue how harsh Mother Nature is, but she's only harsh because she doesn't care. Like,
there is no care. It's just a matter of here's this year's annual resources out there. Maybe it was a good year, maybe it was a bad year. Good luck.
Yeah, like that's her extent.
That's all it is. And every year it's a test. It's always a simple test. It's just like you have these traits. How good did you do this year? And again, how good it is simply how did you survive? And if you survived, did you have kids? That's every single year. That's the only test.
So this is going to sound like a dumb question. It probably is. But was there one ancestral duck that everything broke off from? Like one duck. And then we have everything else?
It was about 70 million years ago. This thing called the Vegavice was uncovered. And this is the ancestor to all ducks. They roamed with dinosaurs, but actually survived. And so they existed 70 million years ago, as far as we know, with the fossil record. And they had all the ancestral traits that we see today in modern birds. That was the first link that had those types of traits. Now, they definitely had a lot of chicken, right? Galliranzare, chickens and turkeys, pheasants, those things. They had a lot of intermediate forms that between waterfowl and those things. And so we know that was the ancestor, the likely ancestor, unless somebody digs something else up that's even older, but 70 million years ago.
How big were they?
All I know is their reconstructions, but they kind of look like a Canada goose.
So bigger.
Yeah. Bigger. Yeah.
And then what?
And there were probably all sorts of varieties. Those are just the fossils that we do have, but I'm sure there were probably also sorts. And but they did survive and as that particular type of bird for God. I think the next set was probably 20 million years later. So they just existed as that.
Whenever you're looking at things through like a lens of millions of years, do you like it when something new comes along and like totally destroys like your hypothesis on everything? Or are you like, motherfucker, I thought I had this figured out?
I love
you
it.
Do.
If you got the data and you can show it and you can be like, hey man, actually it's 100 million. I'll be like, right on. It doesn't bother me. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. It's part of science. Just because we don't know something now doesn't mean that we won't know it tomorrow.
Well, what would be frustrating is when you think that you know something, then it's like, well, this was all a fake. This was a lie.
Well, it wasn't fake. It was just what we knew at the time, right? I mean, for a long time, you flat earthers thought it was flat.
That's a relatively new.
And I will guarantee a lot of people burned at the stake for saying otherwise.
Called you a flat earther.
But some of us evolved.
Some of us aren't scraping our knuckles
While
when we walk anymore.
While we're talking prehistoric birds, how big was a pterodactyl?
There were all kinds, but they were really they went from like bat size to car size.
Oh no shit! Imagine one of them after your ass.
Really big. Yeah, no. I mean, the big ones would have just snatched you up, and the kids would have just eaten you.
Back again to that Mother Nature. She has no feelings.
Hey, that pterodactyl's got to feed its young too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So your class, you've got a class coming up, and you do not have to be a member. You don't have to be a student at UTEP to enroll in this class, right?
That's right. And I appreciate you letting me talk about it on this podcast. I hope folks will be interested in. This is the first time we ever did this, and it's a first of its kind, sort of. So, while we do have options for credit, where you could, if you're, and we have all three options: undergrad, master's, and PhD level. You could come in, you'll get the certificate, but you also get credit that you can transfer to your own institution. But what we also have is a different option for professionals or others interested in taking the course. And you'll get a certificate. And as long as you pass the course, you get a certificate, and that's for anybody. So we have these 4 options, and the course is waterfowl ecology and management. We take a deep dive into, not only just identification of all the North American species, how to identify them by wing, size, where they are located, but also by sound, their taxonomy, who's related to who, and this type of thing. But then we also dive into the history of waterfowl management today and present waterfowl management, the important locations in North America. A lot of it is focused on most of it's focused on North America, both breeding, wintering grounds, migratory grounds. What are the causes for concern? How are things managed? Including disease. And obviously we have to go into the mallard group. We take a deeper dive into the mallard group, mallards, American black ducks, monarch ducks, Mexican ducks, all that good stuff. Since that's the focus of my research, you get to listen to that. And yeah, it's asynchronous. It's all online, so you kind of go on your own time. And because I know a lot of biologists and others have a lot of things on their plates, we're always there to work with the folks to make sure that they have enough time to get through the materials based on their own needs as well.
What are you? Are you expecting it to be made up of mostly biologists, or are you hoping that it's going to be like curious waterfowlers that want to?
I hope it's curious waterfowlers. That'd be awesome. Yeah, if you've been like a waterfowler and you just sort of like, hey, I really want to learn how to really identify a northern shoveler and a blue-winged teal and all that good stuff, you should take it. And if you're curious about, where's this habitat that's producing all the ducks, and what are the management, what kind of management is occurring there, and who's doing it and how, or you're a landowner potentially, we go through the types of plants and different habitat management criteria that you could be doing to increase your productivity, your winter productivity, holding birds and all of that. So it's really made up for both the student, the professional, and anybody that's just curious. Again, all through University of Texas, El Paso. A few different links that I can send out. I think I've sent out and shared it with you guys. And so, yeah, I hope, and even today we have, I think the students that are already on there is both undergrad, grad, and professionals, including some folks at Texas Parks and Wildlife. So I think Minnesota DNR is sending a few folks. So yeah, we're excited about it. We're hoping to have a good year. I'm sure there'll be a lot of issues that we'll go through. Since this is my first foray into this kind of online teaching world, but I'm excited to provide this sort of this knowledge to anybody that's interested in learning of it. And I wanted to also note that all materials are also provided in both English and Spanish. So it's going to be bilingual in that sense.
What's the cost of the course, and how do they sign up for it?
Yes, it's 3 credits, 600. It's $1,800, whether you're doing it for the through our P3 program. So if you Google UTEP P3, that's our online folks that don't want credit, they'll sign up through that. And then folks that are students wanting to get credit that they can transfer to their own universities, that would be through the College of Science at the University of Texas, El Paso. You just have to sign up as a non-thesis seeking student or something like that. And you'll just take it, you'll get the credits, and then you essentially can transfer those credits to your home institute, and they'll go towards your degree plan.
College is now $600 an hour. That's crazy.
What was it when you were there a long time ago?
Fuck, I could take 15. I want to say back when I was in school, probably $40-$50 a credit an hour, maybe.
Well, you used to be able to pay tuition with a Cal at Tech. So
there's so that if you're in state, which would be Texas, for everybody, I think it is a little less, but that's we base it off the idea that this will be anybody anybody in the world can take it. And that's how we set it up.
I'm not knocking that. I'm just talking about the price of college tuition has went up so much compared to what it used to be.
Goes, isn't it? Yeah. It's not what it used to be even when I went. Yeah. So
when you went to college, what was it an hour?
I want to say it was like 100 or 125 bucks. Yeah, because a year in state in California, it was like, heck, the whole year was only like 10 or 12K at that time. I'm sure it's nothing like that now. So yeah.
When I was in school, you could take your full hours, and I think it was probably around $3,500 a year. Not living, just college. It was $300 to $3,500 a year, which that time seemed like a whole lot of freaking money too. But relatively, it was not. People could.
It's all relative.
Well,
right?
It wasn't. Back then, you could work and pay for college and go to school and work and pay for your way. You can't do that now. There ain't a kid in the country that can work and pay for their college and make wages to pay it off. You can get a loan, but you could actually go to school and not borrow money for school.
Well, that's because the government started subsidizing these things.
Well, yes, and the government gets involved. It screws it up.
Well, it just drives the price higher because these schools are not dumb. They know they know what to do.
There ain't a college in the United States right now that's not building something new.
Texas Tech, baby. That's where my money's going. We're going to be the biggest. We got one of the prettiest campuses on the country.
Have you donated any money, Andy?
Jeff, I donate all the time. I'm a big alma mater fan.
Are you a big? So you haven't given them a dime, have you? That's what I thought. I mean, you still use your parents' Netflix.
They're doing well without me. Listen, Netflix is doing well without my $7 a month.
$7. It's about $20. You know what Andy did? Andy had me pick up some hooch yesterday for him at Specs, or 2 days ago. Now, do you have? He does this. I pick up 2 bottles for him. It's $100. I go, well, do you want to give me your credit card to put it on? I don't want you to get in trouble for fraud.
I don't want him to
did pick the booze up and did not leave any money at the house for it though.
I didn't know how much it was, Jeff.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I'm not just going to leave a bunch of money on your table.
You're such a tight ass, and you're bragging about. Is UTEP doing some? Are y'all building on at y'all's campus right now?
Yeah, we are.
Every college is.
Got to have nice facilities.
Our newest president came. She was Air Force. She was, and so she is building up our aeronautics. So we've got a brand new aeronautics building going up. I know she's already got plans for 2 or 3 other buildings. Maybe one day biology will get a new building. I don't know. We'll see.
Y'all's new basketball coach is from the same high school I went to in Wichita Falls. He's a great guy. Joseph Golden was the best high school basketball player I ever seen, and he was a white boy.
Hey, when did web feet start showing up on the landscape? Do we know?
Fully webbed? That would have been the split between what we see in probably 5-10 million years, 5 million.
And how?
The reason that all these birds sort of what we call radiated and evolved was because there was a shift in ecologies, that there were all these new wet resources, right? The water abundance and the types of water, right? Especially so the prairie potholes were essentially, quote unquote, created by ice age, right? So as ice sheets moved back, they essentially created these potholes. Right. And those potholes then created new habitat that didn't exist, but that was really perfect, because the wet and dry, the cycle of wet and dry is what makes them so productive, right? And that productivity opened up new, what we call niche space or habitat. And these birds then were able to, certain populations then invaded, were successful, and voila, new species eventually evolved from those kind of interactions. But drastic changes over long periods of time is what is required for things to then shift, because that means whatever you are no longer the optimum, because ecologies change. And so something has to change as well, and you potentially go extinct. Again, looking at the mammoth, there were different whole types of mammoths and mastodons, right? All kinds of different species. But their problem was that they became so specific to cold climates that was their demise in the end.
Right. So
plus people, liking to hunt them, a little bit of that.
how many generations would it take to develop the web feet for the new optimum, landscape? Is there any way of knowing?
Oh, I don't.
Thousands, hundreds?
No. Generations. Yeah.
So once the climate shifts and what you've got is no longer what you need to survive, how do they do it? Is there a massive dip in population?
Yeah, they just go extinct, just like everything else.
Oof.
Yeah, so if it's fast, if the change is, so it wouldn't be web feet, it would be changes in distributions, and we're sort of seeing this. What you're seeing is as the Arctic warms, and actually what appear to be pseudo pothole-like wetlands kind of actually being present, these birds are now being found even now further north. I was up in northern BC near the Yukon border, and it was September, and there were mallards, pintail, gadwall, green-winged teal, shouldn't be up there, right? These birds these places are opening up, unfortunate for like a polar bear, but apparently these waterfowl are very adaptable, and they will seek out and find habitat if push comes to shove. And that is their main adaptive quality that has allowed them to survive as they have. And it appears that they're doing it now. I think what we're going to see is just shifts to the north. Now, if everything goes to hell and there's no more, fresh water, well, we all go extinct, or some of us go to Mars, I guess. But
that's all we can hope for. Right? Like Mars is our next best bet.
You don't even believe in Mars. You're a flat earther.
Huh?
Yeah.
No, Mars is flat.
What? Okay? What does that have to do with anything?
Nothing. I just
how is flat earthers denying of the solar system?
So you think stuff else is spinning around, but we're just flat Earth, just sitting here by ourselves.
You don't know if Mars has a dark side or not.
Oh my God.
We just talked the other day about the Earth suddenly stopped. What was that? The Great Reset or whatever it was?
No. So
you believe in that?
No.
You don't believe in that?
Are you gonna let me talk?
Yes. Go ahead.
It's called the Adam and Eve theory, and it has to do with pole reversal. And one guy's theory is the CIA just declassified a lot of documents about this. What the guy wrote is that when the poles reverse, the Earth stops for just a second, and then all the momentum that it had keeps going, and that's how you've seen some of the floods and cataclysmic events that reset the civilization.
Do you believe in that then?
What?
The Adam and Eve theory.
Well, I'm starting to read more about that, and that guy was a little bit of a quack. So
because that would definitely blow your flat. Definitely blow your flat Earth out.
He had a lot of weird theories. So I don't know. I don't know why the CIA classified that information or that literature, but they declassified it now.
Was that before, during, or after the LSD?
I think it was right in the middle. He was probably on LSD when he came up with that theory.
Well, there's no doubt that the CIA did do the MK Ultra study on LSD. That's a known fact.
Yes.
And
that's known.
Let's face it. If you want to listen to a podcast, because I went down this wormhole not recent. I was on a trip in Louisiana with some guys. I'm not going to mention any flat earthers or anything on here, but we discussed this on about a 5-hour ride. We discussed flat Earth, Antarctica, and all kinds of stuff. So I came home and I listened to a couple of podcasts on it. You can find a podcast out there for whatever you believe in that they're going to tell you exactly what you think you need to hear. Because their theories are absolutely asinine on this flat Earth, completely freaking crazy.
You've done your research?
I listened to one on it, and I think they're absolutely nuts.
I mean you've done your scientific research to know that the Earth is round.
I'm just
You're just going by what the experts tell you.
Yeah,
Okay.
called intelligence.
Trust the experts, Jeff.
Yeah, I do.
Trust
The
the
Earth
expert.
is round.
Okay, that's fine. It probably is.
Probably is. See, Andy's a flat
I am
earther.
going to lead you guys to that conversation.
I mean, geez, Jeff. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want from me.
Well, Doc, you have been a pleasant podcast again. Very informative. People that need to go take your class.
All online.
Please.
All online. It's interesting that I think this is going to be, I think you're kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of things. I think colleges are going to start seeing this and start opening up a little bit more. So I'm very, very interested to see how all this goes. But I think you're on the cutting edge of the way that we're going to see college institutions do business here in the next decades and years to come.
Yeah, well, hopefully folks listen to this. They sign up. We have a banner year. UTEP's like, obviously the bottom line, and they see the benefits of this, and away we go with it. Hopefully we have a good year, and we'll expand on it. Hopefully, and hopefully folks here listen to it, enjoy it, sign up, and I'll see them in the fall.
So what's next for you? When does classes start? What, the end of August?
Yeah, August 28th. Yeah. Oh man, I got a lot to do.
Couple weeks now.
We start August 28th. What's between that and now, my crew's heading out to Arizona to go catch some Mexican ducks, put some telemetry units out there. So that's work with Arizona Fish and Game, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and Ducks Unlimited that are supporting some of that. And like I said, that's kind of like the first base, trying to understand what these birds are doing, what these populations are doing. As we talked about whistling ducks, Mexican ducks are also expanding north and kind of mushrooming out of Mexico right now. And so we want to know why they're doing it, how they're surviving, where they're having kids, all that good stuff that we know about all these other species. We trying to get ahead with these guys as well. So we'll be out there for a week and hopefully catch a few birds, tag them, and start to learn a few things.
What kind of tag? Is it like a geotag or just like a band?
No, geotag. Yep. I think we're using the cellular units, the ones that kind of ping to cell towers. We were going to use GPS, but there's enough cell towers out there, and that first bird's doing really well on these tags. So we're pretty excited about getting a few more out.
How many do you have to put on there to get like any sort of picture of what's actually going on?
That's a good question. We're aiming for like low ball 10, hopefully 20, 30, just to get that first picture. And we're hoping for, 50-50 on males and females, see what they do. Most studies focus on females to understand breeding ecology, but at this point we don't know much of anything. So might as well figure out what everybody's doing and then kind of focus future questions on females or males, depending on who's doing what.
Nice. Well, very cool. Listen, this has been a ton of fun. Good luck with your college course. I hope it goes well this year. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll have to do this again sometime. It's been a lot of fun. Be safe in your travels and have fun starting school back up.
Yeah. Thank you all.
God bless you, my friend. And from one round earth to another round earth, take care of yourself.
Had to get one more in there. Thank you, Doc.
Oh, man. I don't know if people are. Oh, man. I have to stay out of that one.
Thank you, sir.
See ya.
Bye.
All right.
Well, flat Earth Andy. Change this
Flat
real quick.
Earth. Now I'm a flat earther.
Did you see Senator Cruz rip that lady about the NCAA woman about that there's a difference between a man and a woman?
Mm-mm.
And she couldn't give him an answer. He goes, so you're telling me, and she just kind of came on. He said, well, if there's no difference between women and men, why are we having women's sports? Why do they even exist? Let's just get rid of them.
Right.
We got to just have one sport.
Just trust your experts, Jeff. That's all you got to do.
Well, she didn't like that. And
Just
she's an
trust your
expert.
experts.
All right, Flat Earther. You got anything else? Go to Patreon. Got a big giveaway coming on YouTube. Big giveaway. You want to talk about that?
Not on this one.
Okay.
We'll do it on the next one.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. Have a great week.
Check out our sponsors and go get enrolled in this class. It's going to be a lot of fun. You'll gain a lot of knowledge, become a better, more versatile duck hunter. We're brought to you by Boss Shot Shells, Pacific Calls, Dive Bomb Industries, Dirty Duck Coffee, Shin Gear, Looking Glass Podcast, Lucky Duck, Ducks Unlimited, Double T British Kennels, Mossberg, Stanfield Outfitters, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, And Hemp Hill Farm. I just put some CBD on my ankle.